What's up, family? This is your man, not your boy. Go Black to Africa. I want to speak to you all about what's really going on in Sudan. You know, it's a crime shame that we have what they would say the Sudanese are fighting amongst each other. Two military powers, one the government, one by a private military source, that are warring against each other. But nobody is willing to really dig deeper beyond what the mainstream shows and see why has this erupted to what we know of 500 to 600 people who have died thus far behind this war. Watch this video and I'll be back.
Here is why you should care about the fighting that is going on in Sudan. What's happening there is more than meets the eye. And it's time for the world to discuss the actual truth of what is going on there. America and Russia are at it again, just as they did 60 years ago during the Cold War, when they fought proxy wars right here in Africa, leading to the death of thousands of innocent Africans. They are at it again in Sudan, fighting a proxy war. Let me explain. Two factions of the Sudanese military are fighting each other. One of them is led by Lieutenant General Mohammed Hamdan, head of the paramilitary group known as Rapid Support Forces. The other faction is led by the Sudanese Army Chief, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. So why are they fighting? This is where Russia and USA come into the picture. You see, in the last couple of months, Russia has finalized a deal with Sudan to establish Russia's naval base in Sudan's Red Sea coast. America is not too happy with that. Actually, they're furious. America's ambassador to Sudan, John Godfrey, expressly warned Sudan not to seal that deal with Russia, but they're going ahead and doing just that. And so when the paramilitary unit began fighting the other faction of the army, that wasn't happening in a vacuum. The big problem is that you're not going to hear this in the mainstream media. Neither are you going to hear a lot of African governments voicing this, which is very unfortunate, because Africa must learn to speak its truth and stand on this truth, because truth will set you free. So it is left to the African people, we the African people, to speak this truth and tell America and Russia to get off Africa, to get their hands off Africa. The days of the Cold War, the days of the shenanigans of the Cold War are completely over, and they cannot fight proxy wars in Africa at the expense of innocent African lives. That has to stop. The fighting in Sudan must stop. The puppet masters must stop their evil, diabolic games. Here's why Russia's presence in Sudan, or America's presence in Sudan, or even China's presence in Sudan should concern you, irrespective of whichever African country you live in. In February 2022, a Russian cargo plane stood silently in Khartoum International Airport. Interestingly, the plane's manifest stated that it was carrying cookies for export. Now, Sudan is known for many exports, but exporting cookies is not one of them. When Sudanese officials inspected the plane, they found cookies. They found many colorful boxes of cookies, but they found more. Hidden beneath the cookie boxes were wooden crates containing gold, 1 ton of Sudanese gold. If that shocks you, brace yourself for this. By July 2022, a military aircraft had smuggled gold from Sudan to the Syrian port city of Latakia at least 15 times. Russia has a military base in this port city. So why is this gold being smuggled out instead of being exported through the rightful channels? Could it be to evade paying tax and in so doing steal from the amazing people of Sudan? Let me remind you that Sudan's GDP is $34.3 billion, while Russia's GDP is $1.8 trillion. So why would operators from a country this rich smuggle riches from a country this poor? This is the sad story of Africa. We keep walking away from one toxic relationship straight into another toxic relationship. If it's not US exploiting us, it's Russia exploiting us. If it's not Russia, it's China. If it's not China, it's any of the other countries in the West. Here's why.
I couldn't say it no better than the young brother who's trying to really give information to people and really what's going on. Now, I've went even further to seek out information to see, is there any validity in what the young man says about America and Russia? Now, as you can see what I'm posting, here it is that America is against Russia for Russia wanting to try to build a naval base that America, if you've watched my videos, has a interest in Africa to try to stop the advancement of China or any other country that tries to use Africa as a stepping stone to get closer to America as a threat. What I'm saying is, here it is, America opposes Russia's dealings, and yet nobody talks about that. See, Africa has to realize it's being used by Russia, by China, and by any other country who wants to come in and set up military bases. But can you really blame Africa when it is on begging knee for military support, when it doesn't have the capabilities like every other nation out here who has fighter jets, whether it is the Air Force, the Army, the Marines, the Navy? Africa countries do not have this benefit in protecting its wealth, protecting its economy. It has to rely on these other countries who can supply in return a defense in exchange for resources. You see, when you have countries like America who can strong arm a country, an African country, by it not embracing the human rights, by the LGBT agenda under that name, America could put sanctions against that country, meaning it can stop imports and exports from that country, which many countries depend on its GDP to survive, for its people to thrive. When you have other countries that have been mentioned, like Russia and China, who can also turn its back against countries who do not want to bend to their ways, it can cause devastation in an economy. Now, we know Zimbabwe is a good example of how America collapsed its system, as well as Europe collapsed its system to nothing. But when you look at how Africa is trying its best to find friends that it can help, who they think will be better than what America has been, now you're really at an odds, because these countries know that you totally depend upon them. You know, when they carved up Africa, and you got countries that don't have shorelines and are stuck in the middle of countries who rely on transportation to bring them in food, or the airways to bring in food, and you have little liberties to do your own because of a lack of maybe resources, because of you don't have the military, you don't have the strength to trade globally, you are dependent. That these countries that are really locked, country bound, has really so much of a disadvantage that Africa really needs to rethink unifying it in regions, possibly, in order for each region to have what will be rightfully theirs to protect and defend their countries. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but this is a game that is being played that many of us don't understand. And I hope that we can get to a place that when it's all said and done, Africa uniting with other African countries will make it a more powerful continent to be independent, self-sufficient, without outside influences. This is your man, not your boy. Go black to Africa.
Think about it, 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 think about it.